Hey everyone, welcome back to Village. Today we are going to be talking about technology. It's a mixed bag, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah, especially for parents. The struggle can be so real, just deciding when to set limits, what to allow, what not to allow, and without causing fights, just so much trauma can happen in the family.
It feels traumatic.
Around this area. Yeah, no kidding. So one of the things that we thought would be really helpful to talk about is just kind of some of the ways that we've seen parents deal with this really successfully, and some of the ways or areas where parents and kids can kind of run into trouble. So what I like to think of is sort of the three areas where technology, and I mean, when we say technology, I should clarify, we're talking about everything. Video games, computer, cell phones, iPads, even iPods sometimes, right? Like whatever it is, that can have a pretty negative influence on kids sometimes. And one of those first areas that we see is with relationships.
Huge.
Yeah, right? So in the human brain, we are wired to need face-to-face connection, especially in our very early years. Without that sort of back and forth, serve and return kind of communication, certain parts of the brain don't develop. And it's really scary when we think about that, because so many young kids are being raised on TV. That's where a lot of even their language development comes from. And I don't think that it's parents are necessarily doing this, intentionally or anything, right? It's just you're working and you've got little kids, and this is a way to keep them calm while you go and do something else. So it's really challenging, and it's a topic that I think a lot of parents automatically feel guilty about.
Instantly guilty, right?
Yeah, right? It's like, I should be down there doing this with them. Why are they spending so much time on the TV? And that's not where we're going with this. But I think it's important to have an awareness of what can happen. And so with relationships, I think one of the really important things to address is the balance.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that technology is bad or that kids shouldn't be on it, but is it taking time away from their face-to-face interactions with you, with their friends, with whatever? Like, are they wanting to stay home and play video games rather than go to soccer practice?
Oh, and that's real.
Yeah, right? Is that something that you're okay with as a parent?
Yes. In fact, I had to say that to my kids with video games. I said, as soon as they start to replace your desire to go out and do fun things, that's when we have to really think about taking them away. Like, your answer needs to be yes to do other things.
Absolutely.
And then the answer can be yes to play your video games when we get home.
Yeah, right? It's so important to have that balance. And another area where we see kind of trouble crop up is in just general well-being. So especially, I think, teenagers in particular with their cell phones, like staying up till all hours of the night, texting, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever it is, and then being extremely tired the next day.
Yes.
And when you talk to these kids about it, it's not even that they want to be up on their phone, but it's just like that fear of missing out.
Yes.
Right? Like something's going to happen and I'm not going to be included, and then I'm going to go to school the next day and not know what anybody's talking about, and I'm going to look like the odd one out.
That is so real. That really does happen.
Yeah, and especially in the teenage years when peers become so important, technology can be kind of frightening because it creates sort of this instant access where kids never get, especially teenagers, never get a chance to just wind down, to step away from it.
Winding down is so important.
Yeah, like I remember even when I went to high school, I think I had my first flip phone in like grade 10 and pretty sure it didn't text. But I could be at school and there was like all the pressure, you're kind of navigating these relationships and these peer groups, but then you get home and you get to just forget about it. But kids don't get to do that now because it's still with them on their phones. So I think it's really important to be able to set limits around that.
Yes.
Whether it's, okay, this hour that you get home from school, there's no technology. Or this hour before you go to bed, there's no technology. Or I even know one family who they were struggling so much with their child being up, under the blankets with their phone, that they just said, Kate, new family rule, everybody's phones get charged in the kitchen.
Which is brilliant.
No one takes their phones to the bedroom.
That's brilliant.
Right? And the tricky part, though, is that you as the parent have to be willing to do that, too. Right?
Yes.
To have those same limits and to model that healthy balance.
Because we need downtime, too. We can be so fixated on our phones. And I know that's a struggle because a lot of us work from our phones. A lot of us do a lot of everything from our phones. And so the kids need to see us doing good boundaries, making good decisions with our phones as well. I agree.
Yeah. And I think the really challenging part too is that a lot of parents sort of, or not even parents, teachers too, I think we sort of assume that kids have this natural ability to set limits on themselves. And
We
they
do
don't,
assume that.
right?
I assume that all the time.
Yeah.
You should know better.
Right? Like, you have to be up for school at 7 a.m. Why are you still on your phone at 3 o'clock in the morning? But they don't have that ability
No.
yet. And so we have to create the opportunity for them to develop that by setting those limits for them.
Yes, we are their prefrontal cortex.
Exactly, right? Yes, that part
We
of
are
the
the
brain.
reasoning.
And I mean, the final way, and I think this is probably the area that gets the most attention when it comes to kids and technology, is safety.
Huge.
Especially with the internet. I mean, even gaming now, there's, you can connect with people who you don't know in these gaming atmospheres and stuff. And that can be really problematic for kids who potentially don't understand what the ramifications of their behavior in those online environments are.
Especially if they get easily angered, because a lot of these games are really playing on their fight or flight part of their brain, and so they're angry, and so they lash out, and they can do all sorts of things. That people can find your address, people can do all sorts of things now online, and so it really is important to stay safe and to know how to help our kids find these healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
So
And
important.
I think one of the best ways that parents can do that is by actually being involved in the technology.
Yes.
So many kids, they get that cell phone. It's like, well, it's my phone. I'm like, well, who's paying for it?
Yeah.
Right? So until this youth or child has really proved that they can, be responsible online, you have every right to be looking at that phone occasionally. I want to know what's going on. Or your kid's playing games downstairs, or our computer is going to be in a main area where everybody can walk by. It's not going to be in your bedroom.
Yes.
Things like that, where as a parent you have the right and really the responsibility to know what's happening with your child in these online environments.
Very much. That was one of the things that we did with our oldest. We said, you can have a cell phone and you can have a computer and you can have these video games, but we have to see that you have the responsibility to go with it. And as soon as we see that responsibility disappear, then we take that phone. And I've actually had to do that once. I've had to take my son's phone because he wasn't interacting in a very positive way. You can really see how easy it is to dwindle down. And as soon as I took the phone, all of a sudden there was solutions, there was parameters that he was setting in place. And so then he was able to have his phone back with some new found responsibility. And then it gives them this sense of, we wouldn't just give you a car to drive.
Right? Absolutely.
And if you crash the car, then, well, that's not going to work for you. And so it's the same thing with a phone. It is a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
Technology is a big responsibility.
It is. And I think even as adults, if we struggle to manage it with our well-being and our time, how can we expect kids and teenagers to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And so one of the books that I actually love and would highly recommend is The Big Disconnect. And it's by Catherine Steiner Adair. And she is just fabulous in addressing these topics and not demonizing technology, but really helping, give creative ideas for how parents can come up with some solutions to make this work better for their family.
Oh, that's so good. And that's so important because technology isn't going anywhere.
No.
This is our children's world. We need to learn how to navigate. And this is the first generation that's growing up on iPads.
Which is terrifying.
So there's no studies yet of how this is actually really affecting them. And so we do need to navigate carefully and watch our children. I can tell when my little one has been on screens too much. He loses all kinds of self-control. And so I don't sometimes go by a book. I go by what he's showing me.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of it too, is really paying attention and, really watching, is this working or not?
This certain video game might affect them more than that.
A different one. Yep. And being present for it, sit down with your kid. Show me for an hour. What do you do on this game? Even if you don't understand it. That could be kind of fun for them too. Be like, oh my goodness, Mom. Right? But it's actually being involved in it. So it doesn't become a world that is completely separate from you as their parent, as their guardian.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, thank you. And if you guys have any stories or tips, advice that you want to share with the families, teachers, caregivers who follow us, we would love to hear them.
Bye.